Hey, what's up, everyone? This is the first ever episode of Rusty Talks podcast, special versions of the podcast in English. It's going to be interesting, and we have a special guest today, Ian Allardyce. What's up, man?
Hello. Thanks for having me, Rusty. It's a real pleasure.
Yes, pleasure to have you. It's my honor to have you here, actually. It's great, and this is unprecedented for me because I never did anything like this in English before.
Cool.
So if I blunder along the way, just I don't know, continue the topic.
Yeah, well,
just ignore me or something.
I apologise also because I've lived here long enough that I probably should speak really good Mongolian.
Okay.
I speak Mongolian when I'm with like friends and family, but technical words and things, so it's best in English. So, but
yeah. This is a really good practice for me too. So my English might be a little rusty over there. Yeah, no worries. All right, so we're gonna talk. We're gonna actually do 2 episodes, right? And this is the first episode of our little 2-episode two parts podcast. And on the first episode, we're gonna talk about your favorite 90s films, your influences as a filmmaker, and also we're going to talk about what is British social realism, right?
Yeah.
So this is the first part of our podcast. So shall we begin with the topics? What is British social realism?
Well, it's not solely owned, of course, by the British. You just put the British tag on the front because social realism as a form of art, of course, goes way back, like 100 years, 200 years into painting and photography. And it was the first kind of art, I guess, that was trying to really be a mirror for everyday regular life. And normally that meant like working people's lives.
Right.
But in cinema, you could say the people that actually invented it were the Italians. It's called the Italian neo-realism wave, which was in the sort of like the 40s and 50s.
All right.
After Italy had been destroyed in the Second World War and after Mussolini, and they were kind of trying to reinvigorate their culture. And also social realism in cinema has a lot to do with technology because it only came about when cameras were miniaturized down, old Super 8 film, Super 16 film, whereas before you can imagine great big huge movie cameras in the studio. So what that meant is that the filmmakers could take the cameras out of the studios and go and film on like real location. To us now saying it just seems like mitej, of course, but back then it was not a common thing in film. So the first filmmakers were like Fellini, and the movies were like The Bicycle Thieves and The Earth Trembled and Rome. There's a movie called Rome. And basically those were movies about sort of regular working class people. So anyway, fast forward to British social realism. It follows on from that. And then you have directors like that you would have heard of, like Ken Loach, Mike Leigh.
Mike Leigh I've heard of.
Yes, and Ken Loach you would have probably heard I Am Daniel Blake.
Yes, Daniel Blake.
That's a social realist film. And then Lynn Ramsey, she's a female director. Her first films were in that mode, but now she's moved to the movie recently with Joaquin Phoenix.
You Were Never Really There.
You Were Never Really There.
Yes,
that's Lynn Ramsey. But she's kind of evolved. But if you watch her early movies, Ratcatcher and Morven Carroll, they're social realist movies. But my favourite director is Shane Meadows. And so that the style of social realism, and why I mentioned it to you when we talked before, and how it has to do with my inspiration as a filmmaker, is that it basically, whereas I think that of course movies in general, Hollywood movies or any kind of entertainment mainstream movie, when you think about it, the characters that you're seeing in those movies are characters that are like what I would call like hyper real. They're not they're not someone you know. You don't bump into them in the shop because otherwise that would be boring. You know, they're like a, you know, diehard, you know, police officer in a vest, like the kick-ass people, or the, you know, the exaggerated version of a real person.
Yeah.
But that's what you want to see when you watch an entertainment movie, because you want them to be fantastic and extraordinary.
It's also an escapism.
Escapism, exactly. But whereas social realism is all about the characters in the film being exactly a person that you might bump into in the shop, exactly someone that you can relate to. So for me, basically, you know, you asked me how I got into making movies. Yeah. And of course, we've just releasing now Oddbagegi.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an amazing film.
Thank you.
Can't recommend it enough.
Yeah. It will be released next spring by Hulugu.
Yeah.
So anyway, when we met at the screening, you asked me sort of how I got into film, and basically I told you this kind of quick history of myself is that I was, you know, in England studying in high school, normal guy, and actually I got into, you know, I got pretty like, I couldn't really study well at school.
Right.
I got pretty like lazy.
Same here.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, sometimes some people at school is like, you know, tons of information, but you're just hungry for other kinds of information and not bothered with like the school text, you know. I was that kind of person. I think I was really into learning, but not learning what they were teaching, if you know what I mean. So I got kind of bad grades, and I got in some trouble with the police at one point.
All right, what problems were those?
Oh man,
what
it was
troubles
crazy.
were those?
I was just a crazy kid, just you know, just an idiot basically. What actually happened was this funny story. You remember laser pens?
Yeah.
When they first came out in like the late 90s, this would be like 98 or 90, something like that. They just arrived and they were like a real novelty, and like, hey, wow. And I had one, and I, for some unknown reason, I think I was probably drinking or something, I shined it into a police car that was driving down the street. So I wasn't like an arch criminal or something, I was just an idiot. But anyway, the laser pen shined in, and apparently, according to the policeman, it like blinded them or whatever. So anyway, it went right into court and everything, because they because the laser pens were new, and they were like, people were freaking out about them when they came out. Okay. And so anyway, I was just, you know, just crazy messing about, and I used to watch movies with my sister, and back then it's a fun thing that everything's so changed now. Of course, you just stream stuff or download it. Back then it was like going down to the VHS store. Yeah. Rent the VHS, take it home, and I rented this one movie called 24/7. All right, which I didn't really know anything about, but I liked the cover. It had a boxing gym on the front, and this film kind of changed my life, and still to this day I watch it, and it almost makes me cry. And that is by the director Shane Meadows, and it's in that British social realism mode. It's about a guy, an old guy, who you can tell that when you meet him at the beginning of the movie, you can tell that he's got some, you know, past, but you don't really know. And he decides to set up a boxing club in this kind of working class area in the north of England for these young lads that are like, you know, messing about and not really doing anything, you know. And so he decides that if he makes a boxing club for them, it will focus them. And it's a really beautiful story, and at the end it's very sad. I won't tell you what happens. And I watched that movie with my sister, and I remember thinking to myself at that time, this is the first time I've ever seen a movie where the characters, these young guys, I know those guys. They look like my friends. They look like me. You can relate to the characters. Yeah, they're not like, you know, Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, or, you know, they're not like, you know, Brad Pitt. They're guys. Yeah. And I thought, wow. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to be like that. I want to make, you know, it just really inspired me. And my parents that time said, well, what are you going to do? You know, what do you want to do? And they probably, you know, bless them, they probably had a heart attack when I said, I want to get into the film business. Because normally that ends up, you know, working in the video store or something. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I did study media studies and film studies after that, and I was really into it. And then I went to university and studied film studies. And then right after university, I was able to come to Mongolia to work, and that's when I met a lot of friends that I still work with now, Amga,
Yeah.
who made the film with. But it all probably goes back to that movie 24/7. And so social realism is about that. It's about making a film where you know the people. They are real life people, like as close to documentary
as it can get
without being documentary, if you see what I mean.
That's great.
But a lot of the camera techniques and stuff are similar. So it's the Russians also had their version, of course, and I think some of the early Mongolian movies would class into that. Like Bichem Ter. But as I think Mongolian movies moved farther away from that mode of filmmaking, and it's actually quite difficult to do. It's like, I think that shooting a movie in that mode, to me, it's like a footballer like Gareth Bale or Ronaldo or somewhere, where when they're on the pitch, they make it look real easy. But what actually happened was they trained hours and hours and hours and hours on the training pitch to make it look easy on the pitch.
Yeah.
And I think that making a social realism movie is like that, because you make it look like everything happened just totally naturally.
Yeah.
But oftentimes that means that
to make it happen.
To make it happen, it means that the actors often have to rehearse a lot. And for instance, there's a movie came out a couple of years ago by a British director, but it's in America. It's called American Honey.
Oh, okay, and
it's got
heard of that
Shia
film,
LaBeouf in it, and I can't remember the name of the girl. She's a black girl, and it's Shia LaBeouf. And that movie, when you see those kids acting in that, I was blown away, because they literally look like they just came out of off the street.
Yeah.
But I read about it, and apparently what she did is she spent like a month or 2 months living with them in like a camp, and they just every day just rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. But then when they come to shoot the film, they don't look like pro actors. They still look very loose and natural, but they just nail it, and that is the hard thing to do.
This new film, written and directed by Jonah Hill, his first feature film, mid-90s.
Yes,
I heard that film
Yeah.
is probably going in that kind of lane.
Yeah, and he's used a lot of old camera tech and stuff to make it look like it was shot in that movie.
Yeah, and there were no actors in the film.
Yeah.
There's actual just skater kids.
There's a movie. Well, it's a movie. That movie is a direct link from a movie in the 90s called Kids.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Who made it? I forgot who made it.
Walter Jenkins, I want to say. I can't remember his name, but
I remember.
It's got a bunch
Rosario Dawson.
Rosario Dawson and Chloe Sevigny.
Yes, she's in it. Yeah.
So you get these kind of, but that is in that mode, you know.
That was a tough one to swallow, though. That movie.
It's hot, yeah.
And I probably watched it way too early. Early as in I was 20 or something, but at that point I never really understood film. You know what I mean? I used to watch the bigger ones, but the kids, I don't know why I watched it, but I think I have to watch it now to get what I really have to.
I was actually thinking about it during making our film, and I want to watch it again. But yeah, it's one of those films where you know it's good, but it's tough.
Yeah, it is.
Requiem for a Dream or something like that.
Oh man, Requiem for a Dream.
Something that blows your mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that that social realism as a type of filmmaking is like eternal, like film, but it's just like the rough cousin of other kinds of filmmaking. And once in a while, a film comes out which is in that mode and becomes a big hit, and then people kind of, some of the styles and techniques of that style of filmmaking crosses over, so that nowadays the actual this kind of muddied between what is, for instance, Billy Elliot.
Yeah, Billy Elliot, yeah.
Yeah, so Billy Elliot is a film which a lot of it would have taken its kind of style and tone from social realism, but then it's like a mainstream movie.
Yeah, it is.
So nowadays you get lots of mainstream movies where they're using the techniques of social realism, but with like a nicer story.
Mix it up with other elements.
And maybe that's what we did in Odd Bagegi as well. Because Odd Bagegi, when we developed the script, Amgar and I and Dolgan was involved, we see, I've explained this a lot of times, but I'll explain it one more time, when I've been at screenings, is that we could have made the film go in two different directions, because especially as a foreigner here co-directing the movie, you know, I thought it would have. Let me explain. You might have to edit this a little bit. Sorry.
That's all right.
If we would have made it into more of a tough direction. So, for instance, well, imagine if the main character would have been like from a tougher background, or imagine if like he had like to overcome some real challenge, like his parents were alcoholics, or you know, we could have easily done
depressing stuff.
Depressing. Bleak is the word normally people use, bleak, which would have been totally fine, and it could be a really other kind of movie, which is like a cousin of Odbagegi. But we just decided that we didn't want to do that because we felt like it keeps telling the same story that foreign filmmakers often do when they come to Mongolia. They either make a countryside film, you know, like Eagle Huntress or
Children of Kings,
or they make a film where like everyone is like, you know, fighting and struggling, and it's, so we just said we're not going to do that. Just one time, you know, and like I said a lot of times, I said if there's 20 indie movies come out, then if all 20 have that message, then that's why can't there be five films that have other kind of message, and the other filmmakers will still make that kind of movie. That's fine, but just a balance.
It felt like they sing Up on the Hill, right? That's the English name.
Correct.
It really felt like it's the first of, at least in the last 15 or so years, felt like it's the first true indie film in the Mongolian film scene. I don't know why, but I can't really explain it, but it just felt like that. I don't know, it felt different, it felt...
Well, it's good, it's because we were trying to mix in the positive message, and of course it has some mainstream elements. We don't want it to be considered an indie movie, we want it to just be considered a movie. You know, it has music in it, it's got like quite famous actors like Togbayer and Togbayer. And it has elements of mainstream, but then from the social realism, the tone of it has that indie tone. But we're really careful to not let people think it's an indie movie, because indie movie has certain connotations in Mongolia, you know. So we just want as many people to watch it as possible.
I want the same too.
Well, exactly. So then if it's like, you know, it's like explaining a meal to someone, you know, that has different parts of the meal, and some parts are good for some people and some parts are good for other people. And so if the indie kids come and watch it and they think it's an indie movie, great. And then if the like regular other kind of people watch it, and film goers, and they get something different from it, brilliant. Then, you know, that's our goal. So, and then if foreign people watch it, which is also the other side of the goal, if some, you know, 17-year-old guy watches it in London or America or whatever, and then I really want at the end of the movie him to think, wow, gee, I didn't know that about Mongolia and about Ulaanbaatar. So if all those three things happen,
then you achieve your goal.
We'll achieve our goal. But to do that, we had to do certain things. And of course, the film's not perfect. I wouldn't say that. You know, what film is perfect? I don't know, Jaws or something.
But I hear that a lot, though.
There's a few, 20 perfect films in the whole history of film. So it's not perfect, but because it to walk that line between the two sides is real tricky. So we tried to walk it, and
man, you really have achieved something there.
Thank you.
I love it. I can't recommend it enough, and I hope it comes out soon. It's spring, right?
Yes, we it depends a lot with scheduling with other movies, so we might release it at Valentine's Day.
That would be amazing.
It would be cool, or we might go a bit later into March, which also would be cool. You know, the time when, you know, people waiting for winter to end and summer to come, and then it will still be on the movie theatres as summer starts.
That would be right nice.
And then it will be in Univision and Sky Media and D-Dish in the autumn.
December, right?
Yeah, in the autumn. The theatres, they have an agreement with the theatres that when you release a movie in Mongolia, then you have to wait 6 months, and then it goes on the IPTV, because that protects the theatre business.
Kind of like how the Blu-ray releases work.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so talking about our favorite filmmakers, you mentioned Wes Anderson as one of your favorite filmmakers.
It's like we've been talking about this British social realism, so then I think Wes Anderson's probably the complete opposite in indie movie, because his movies are all, and I just fell in love with them. I mean, there's a period of time, I think, like, you know, where people say they've got their 5 favourite movies?
Yeah.
And my 5 favourite movies have kind of not really changed for such a long time, because of a period of time when I was really getting inspired by cinema.
Okay.
And so
that's interesting.
Yeah, and so I occasionally think about adding one or taking one out, but oftentimes it stays the same, and it's basically 24/7, which I've talked to you about, by Shane Meadows, which I recommend you all watch. Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights.
Anderson,
yes.
Big Lebowski.
Coen Brothers. Yes.
The Thin Red Line. The Thin Red Line. That's the Second World War movie that came out around about the same time as Saving Private Ryan. Okay. Except it's set in the Pacific. And that is...
I've definitely heard about it. But
that is one of my... It's just an awesome movie. The second act is a bit slow, but... and it was basically a big deal at the time because...
Oh, it's Terrence Malick.
Yeah, Terrence Malick. Right. He hadn't made any movies for like 14 years.
All right.
And so he'd like... In the 70s, he was like the guy.
Yeah.
And then he just disappeared. Just like just didn't work.
Much like it did in the 2000s, right? He also did this disappear.
Tree of Life.
Yeah, Tree of Life, yes.
But he basically hadn't done anything for 14 years, and then The Thin Red Line came out, and because he was such a big deal in the 70s, like literally every big actor wanted to be in that movie. So you've got like, there's just everyone's in it. Brad Pitt, George Clooney, and you can see the list here.
Sean Penn, Adrian Brody, Jim Caviezel, Ben Chaplin, George Clooney, John Cusack, Woody Harrelson, Nick Holt is in it, John C. Reilly, John Travolta. It's amazing. And Hans Zimmer did the score.
And then he famously, like with the Tree of Life, he shoots Terrence Malick. And apparently he shot something like, you know, one of the biggest ratios ever. The studio is going mad. Like he shoots like 200 hours of stuff. Wow, and then there's actors that what's the actor? Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah,
the big actors in that just cut out. And a lot of, and actually John Travolta and George Clooney in it for like 2 minutes.
Wow!
And it's just a great movie. The score is incredible. Hans Zimmer's score. And so I recommend watching that. And then Rushmore was where you get back to Wes Anderson. That's my top 5.
Awesome.
Which is his second movie. A lot of people think it's his first movie, but it's his second movie.
Wow, that's some great top 5.
So yeah, and basically Paul Wes Anderson to me was just like, again, when you see a filmmaker's films, that the first time you see one of their films and you just think like, I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
Like when I saw Rushmore, the way he, does those little tableaus and the way he uses music, I just thought, geez, I've never seen anything like this before. And ever since then, and actually I met my wife, who's Mongolian. It's kind of a romantic story. When we were sort of getting to know each other, we just talked about, she mentioned that the Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah.
And she was like, I love that movie, The Royal Tenenbaums. And I was like, I love that movie.
Nice.
And I think
bonding over movies is great.
I'm pretty much sure that because she really loved that movie a lot and we watched it a bunch of times, I think that was like cementing our thing. And then 15 years later,
thanks Wes Anderson.
Yeah, thanks Wes Anderson, exactly, yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, he's a great guy.
Owen Wilson too. He co-wrote the script, huh? That's great.
Yeah, he did.
Wow.
They were that period. Yeah, they were all great. So many great actors in that movie. Gene Hackman, but mostly just how he uses music. I love.
Yeah. His filmmaking has his own style, right?
Yeah.
I mean, filmmakers do have their own style, but they change it film to film depending on the genre
like
or the
Coen
story.
Brothers.
Yeah. But Wes Anderson has this style where, like let's say you somebody shows you a movie that you don't know who made, right? Like who made that movie, but if Wes Anderson has made it, you can tell right away from the first shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the shot composition and everything is just so unique. Yeah. But also it works with every film. It's different. It's amazing.
It's his attention to detail and the way that he keeps things kind of like humorous and fun and light, but without at the same time going to like too schmaltzy.
Yeah.
And but yeah, all his movies. It was like Rushmore, then Royal Tenenbaums, Life Aquatic. I loved Steve Zissou. You know, that's the one where they're like out on the ocean.
Yeah,
I dressed up as that character once at Fancy Dress, Steve Zissou,
Nice.
with a little red hat and the blue pants and blue shirt. Yeah.
Probably the first ever Wes Anderson movie was for me was Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah.
I hadn't watched Fantastic Mr. Fox or the ones before, but I watched Moonrise Kingdom the first. It was great.
Yeah, I quite liked that one. It wasn't my favourite, but I quite liked it. Also, Darjeeling Tea Limited.
Yeah.
Was good.
And Grand Budapest Hotel. A lot of Mongolians love that movie. It's great.
The thing about him is that when we mentioned the Coen brothers, is like you said, the Coen brothers can just change mode at any time. They can do like
right?
thriller, they can do comedy,
And
they
Western.
can do historical, they can do whatever. I've seen pretty much all their movies. I haven't seen the new one, Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
It's pretty much an anthology, right? Like 6 different stories.
Right. Yeah, no, I've not seen it yet. But the Wes Anderson, if you go right back to the beginning and you watch Bottle Rocket, which is his first movie, basically all that's happened with Wes Anderson is every time he gets a bigger budget, but he makes kind of the same movie.
Yeah.
So you get a Bottle Rocket, and then he got a bigger budget and makes Rushmore. Then he gets a bigger budget and makes Royal Tenenbaums. Then he gets a bigger budget and makes Life Aquatic. And they're kind of like, they don't change. You know, like you said, you know it's him instantly. He's just got more money. And then Grand Budapest Hotel, I guess he had quite a bit of money because there's all those, you know, kind of set pieces and things. It looks quite expensive.
So we just talked about in our pretty recent podcast that Wes Anderson's new film is going to be a musical set in 50s France.
Nice.
The cast includes Frances McDormand, Bill Murray, Tilda Swinton, Timothée Chalamet, Benicio del Toro, Jeffrey Wright, Lea Seydoux. What a cast!
Oh, Lea Seydoux. Wow.
Yeah, and it's a
hot.
musical in French. If I heard that correctly, I'm not sure, but it's set in France, definitely.
He sounds like that. Who's that tiny little French singer? That period, you know. Edith Piaf.
Edith Piaf.
Yes, that period.
Yeah,
so, yeah. That sounds great.
It's gonna be amazing though.
I'm never complaining when there's another musical movie because you know, it seems like that is come back really, right? Since La La Land and
La La Land helped a lot, whether a lot of people liked it or not. I love it. I personally love it.
I was on the fence. I was kind of on the fence. I loved Whiplash, and then what I didn't like about La La Land, I liked the story and the film, but something really annoyed me about it is that the dancing, right? Yeah, isn't that good. Technically,
yeah, it's not
right,
and the singing too.
Yeah, so the talk at the time when it was coming out was, oh well, the dancing's not that good because you could either get a really good pro dancer, who isn't a famous actor, and then you wouldn't be able to sell the movie, or you get the big name actors, who maybe aren't top pro dancers, and then you're like, well, it's kind of ironic the way they're dancing, you know. But then I think to myself, like, why should we live in that world where we accept things that are like not quite as good as they should be? Because if you go back to the 50s and the 60s, like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and all the classic, they can dance like incredible, and they're actors, and they can do everything. It's like everything's slightly worse. And I think I'm a bit of like an old school.
Yeah, I think musicals were much of a big of a genre back then, right? Like, and nowadays it's when you mention like if you want to hire professional dancers, right? It's gonna be Step Up. Yeah, that's the problem. Like even if the filmmaking is better, it's just nobody's gonna watch it. Like you know, a filmmaker like Damien Chazelle is not going to hire So
he's not gonna hire
and I think I've watched a lot of Damien Chazelle interviews and roundtable talks and everything. And I think he mentioned the thing about the dancing and also the singing, except John Legend, of course, he's an amazing singer.
Yes.
That Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone's dancing and singing doesn't look and sound professional, and they're supposed to sound like that. And it's
exactly, they're supposed to sound like kind of like it's like an ironic take on the old classic movies from the 50s and the 40s and the 50s. But then I was thinking to myself that with the filmmaking is at such a high level, you know, like the camera work and the stylized. I was just thinking, why doesn't the dancing match? Anyway, it was a great movie.
I loved it. It's one of my all-time favorites. I don't know, I don't have a definite top 5 or 10, but it's definitely up there. I love it. It's changed a lot of things for me. It's great. So that's the no, we're not done yet. Hold on.
The short film.
No. Here we have a question. I have a short question. What are your top 5 most favorite 5 films from the 90s?
Right. Well, this is it. This is my my. Do you know? I'm actually a real 90s kid because I was 10 in 1990 and I was 20 in year 2000.
Nice.
So I'm right on like teenage years all the way through the 90s.
So you experienced everything.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was for me. It was of course a great time. Music aside as well. You know, grunge and rave and Manchester sound and Britpop. It all happened then. I sound like a reminiscing now, but when you asked me to think of my top 90s, I didn't want to choose like the obvious ones, so I thought I'd just throw in a few that you might not know. So there's a movie called Stand By Me.
Stand By Me, all right.
Yeah, which is about these 4 boys that go on this kind of adventure to try and find a dead body of a kid that's gone missing. It's based on a Stephen King book.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know, he little known thing is that Stephen King wrote a bunch of stories that were like not horrors, like dramas, which is actually it's from, funnily enough, it's from a book with 4 short stories in it, right? Okay. And they all became movies. So you all have heard of some of the other ones, The Green Mile with Tom Hanks.
Yes, that one's amazing.
And I forget the other 2, maybe, but anyway, Stand By Me is in that book of short stories. And the lead actor in it is Joaquin Phoenix's brother.
River Phoenix. He sadly passed away. Right?
Yeah, everyone thought he was going to be like the
next big thing.
Yeah, he's an incredible actor. And it's got, I know you're a Star Trek fan, and so you'll notice Gordy LaForge in there.
Yeah.
Not Gordy LaForge, what's he called?
Hold on.
Right, look, you recognise him?
Yes, hold on.
He is the son of the Doctor. In Generations. Anyway, but it's a great movie, Stand By Me, so I'll recommend watching it. And then I'm going to chuck in a curveball here, one of my favourite 90s movies, Alien 3.
Alien 3?
And I chuck it in because people normally criticise Alien 3. And of course,
it's the Fincher one, right?
It's the Fincher one, yeah. And he had such a trouble making it because there was such a lot of expectation after Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
And he came onto the project, I think, about halfway through, and there'd been all these script rewrites, and there's all these mad stories about like the early scripts that were set on like a wooden planet with full of llamas and stuff. And, but he came on, and I've always really liked it. I think it's because it's slightly British. There's some British actors in it, and there's some like good English like swearing in it, and I've always found it to like really tie up that trilogy. You know, we won't talk about
Resurrection.
No. Number 4 and everything since then. But I thought it really tied it up. Like she's got an alien inside herself and she kills herself. So I've always rewatched that movie a lot.
The stories about the production of Alien 3 it's a story itself.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, people left. People, you know, they were freaking out that he killed off their character who was still alive at the end of 2, Michael Biehn.
Yeah, Michael Biehn.
He's a 90s hero. He's in Terminator.
Terminator, yes.
Yeah. But I just like the movie, and I have long conversations with people about Alien 3 because I like in London. My generation friends, people, it's a Marmite film, we call it. People either hate it or they love it.
Hate it or love it film.
Hate it or love it. So I've always really liked it. And then I'm going to add in, which is right at the beginning of the decade, Goodfellas.
Scorsese, that's
Goodfellas.
A masterpiece.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
You can't watch movies in the 90s without having watched that like a bunch of times. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Yeah, just the first the beginning of the film with I forgot the actor's name. The character's Henry, right?
Ray Liotta.
Yeah, Ray Liotta. Just remember his voiceover. It's amazing. Just the beginning ending.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite And then at the other end of the decade, because I think it came out in 1999, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
Oh my god, that is amazing.
Yeah,
that
of
one.
course, the Guy Ritchie movie.
I love it. It's Guy Ritchie's first film, though, right? First feature film.
It's his first film. Yeah, he used to make. Prior to that, he made music videos and reclams. He was he came from commercials, and that you can really see that in that film because I think his style of filmmaking is to break down every scene and make every scene almost like it's a little reclam, like the way he edits, and that's so. I think
it's his style, right?
Yeah, he's like,
he's never lost that style since, though.
No,
right?
no, and he's lost his way with some movies and got criticised a lot, but you can't take Lock, Stock away from him. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it is.
And what else have I added? I've got a bunch on my list here, which Highlander.
Highlander, all right.
Yeah,
I haven't watched that one.
That's great. That's about people who live forever, the immortals, and it's quite current at the moment because all the music's by Queen.
Oh wow!
So it's Who Wants to
Oh, that one!
Forever?
That song is the soundtrack for that film, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Who wants to... and it's just awesome. It's got Sean Connery in it, and it's got what's that guy called? Christopher. I forgot, but yeah, it's just really cool. It's about these guys that live forever, and they have to fight each other. Like they're immortals, and each time they fight each other, one of them will cut off the other one's head.
Okay.
And then he'll gain the power from the other immortal until there's just one left.
Wow.
But there's like bad ones and good ones. It's a really cool movie. I used to watch that a lot when I was younger. Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused. Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah, Linklater. That's a really...
Yes.
And of course, the good thing about that is that how many famous actors came out of it. Like
Yes.
Ben Affleck and Matthew
McConaughey, yes.
Yeah, so that's a great... And again, that was kind of referenced a little bit when we were making Odd Bagegi because, that's one film where it's all about the tone of the film.
Yeah.
You watch it, and if you ask me afterwards what it's about, I'll say, they just... bunch of kids finished high school, hung around, went to a party, got drunk, messed. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
but that's his. Yeah. That's again his style, and it's about the tone and about the moments.
And many of Richard Linklater's films are like that, right? It's not really about what happens, but it's just characters and people just being, right?
Just being, just the tone, just the feel of it. What do you guys call it? The vibe.
Yes, the vibe
of the movie. So Odd Bagegi has some of that in it.
It does. It
so
Dazed
and Confused, and I'll just quickly Lost Boys.
Lost Boys.
That is a archetypical 90s movie because the other thing I haven't mentioned here is like all the kind of 90s comedies that came out, but Lost Boys is a movie about a bunch of vampires in Los Angeles, Santa Monica.
Okay.
And it's got like Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Patric, and it's got a really young Corey Haim and Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. That's an awesome movie. That is just awesome. It's got like loads of Doors music in it, and
Joel Schumacher made it, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite an action kind of thing. And then what other favourite movies have I written down here? Well, this is kind of a fun one because it's not like what you'd consider the best movie of all time, but I just love it because it's so hilarious, but not in the wrong way. Is if you think about Schwarzenegger movies in the 90s. Yeah. Of course, you're going to straight away think like Terminator and Predator. And of course, Predator is like the all-time kind of action benchmark movie. But Commando.
Right? I love Commando.
It's just hilarious. It's just too much.
As over-the-top action can be for the time.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And he just has all these one-liners in it. And just...
I love the sequence where he comes up to the island with I don't know what types of weapons he has, types of arsenal he has. It's amazing. I love it.
And he, so many good lines in it. Like,
is the line with is Carl Weathers in that? No, right?
Carl Weathers is in Predator.
Predator. Yes.
Carl Weathers and Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
No, Commando has Bill Duke. Who's one of my favourite 90s action. He's also in... Bill Duke is the guy in Predator.
Yeah, he is in there too. Yeah.
Who his friend gets killed and he grabs the big gun. And,
yeah,
Bill Duke's in Commando. And there's a really funny 90s action actor called Vernon Wells.
Okay.
Who was in like Mad Max and stuff like that.
He
plays the baddie. and
which one?
running Vernon Wells.
Which one from Mad Max?
He's a baddie in Mad Max that's got like the bald head.
Oh,
and,
that one. Oh,
yeah. And he's in Commando, and I just love Commando. But when I was growing up, me and my pals used to watch it a lot and like quote all the lines back to each other. And actually, when I was 30 years old, you guys could have by now worked out how old I am. A lot of clues. But when I was 30, my wife said to me, well, "What do you want to do for your 30th party?" And there was all these like bunch of people were having parties at the same time because we were all becoming 30 at the same time. People doing all these fancy things like going for fancy meals and stuff. And she said, "What do you actually want to do?" And I was getting really stressed because I was like, I don't want to do something I don't want to do, but at the same time I want to have fun with my friends and like what you know what to do. And then I just said to her, "Do you know what I want to do? We'll just hire a small screening room in London, and I'll get the Blu-ray of Commando, and we'll just order a load of cocktails and we'll watch Commando. And
awesome.
And then afterwards we'll go and eat a steak." And that's exactly what we did. It was the best ever.
That is the best ever.
And then, so now I'm going to be 40 soon, and my wife's saying to me, "What do you want to do for your 40th?" And I might just do the same thing again.
You can make it a thing every decade.
There's so many good lines in that film.
My favorite 90s Schwarzenegger film could probably be True Lies.
Yeah,
I love it. It's James Cameron. It's
I love
amazing.
The bit at the end
it's over the top.
Yeah, and
it's great.
The baddie in that is a British actor called Malik, I think, Malik something. And you know that bit where they're filming his message, his terrorist message, and then the battery runs out on the camera. Yeah, that is the best.
I love the sequence where he fires the rocket, but the rocket doesn't blow up until it got to the other side of the building.
The guy's hanging off it.
Yeah, that was just iconic when I was a kid, and it's.
That was good.
Also, there was this film from the 90s that actually kind of blew my mind when I was a kid. It's Last Action Hero. I never had watched anything like it before.
That's the one where he comes out of the kind of film. The boy, there's got the boy in it.
Yeah, it's a very meta film. It's weird. I think it was just way too ahead of its time, though. Right? It
is. It's funny. The 90s was a time where I think like the actors, the big actors, so you had Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Bruce Willis. They were so prolific that they made so many movies. Nowadays, you maybe one or two, every 2 years there's a movie coming out. But when you look at like the IMDb of Schwarzenegger, and it's like a movie, like 2 movies per year. Yeah, for a year,
for a whole like 2 decades, right?
And you're like shit. I forgot he even made that. Red Heat and
Twins,
comedy movies. Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. I know that's no. I know the one I'm thinking of.
Which is the one where he gets pregnant? Yeah, that one too. Yeah. But anyway, Kindergarten Cop. There was Kindergarten Cop. Yeah.
But Commando, I always tell people, don't. Predator's incredible, but if you want to watch an Arnie movie, just watch Commando.
I think Commando is the ultimate 80s movie. It's amazing.
He's the baddie in it's called Bennett.
Bennett, Bennett. I remember that.
At the end, he throws a thing through him.
Stick around, right?
No, let off some steam.
Oh, let off some steam. Yes. Yeah. His one-liners are amazing.
Yeah. There's a guy. He says, "You promised you would kill me last." I lied.
Yes. Yeah. And it just drops him off a cliff.
Yeah. So, and he kills the guy in the plane, and then he puts a blanket over his head, and he goes, "He's dead tired."
Yeah. Puts a blanket over him. Yeah. That was amazing. Yeah. I love Schwarzenegger. It's his movies are kind of I don't know if it's the right word, but kind of timeless.
They are. Yeah.
It's amazing. All right. I have one last question for this first episode of ours. It's a super weird, not weird, but just out of left field, if that's the right description. It's not a movie related question. What was your favorite song or album of the year this year?
This year?
Yeah.
Oh, I was talking about this the other day with someone, and I have been kind of busy this year and haven't really. Whenever I think of an album that just came out, and then someone will say, "No, that was last year, 2000." I can't keep up. Recently, let me think. I just don't listen to. I haven't got any new recommendations. There's a band called Bedouin.
Okay.
This is like a female singer, and I'm not sure. But again, I don't know if her album came out this year. So I'll have to pass on that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the first episode. It's the first episode of our special English editions of our podcasts. Mm-hmm. So thank you for coming, and let's do the second podcast after we pause.
Very much, yeah. More coffee, more
movie
more
talk.
energy. Yeah.
Yes, more energy. And where can people find you?
Well, they can find my company's called Really Nice Content. And so I've got that's for like boring brand work and so on. Otherwise, just go to the Odd Bagigi Facebook page, because that's the coolest thing at the moment.
Yes, so go to the They Sing Up on the Hill and Odd Bagigi Facebook page and definitely like it, like the page, and follow the page as they update about the release of the film, and the music should be coming out soon, right?
That's the thing. Everyone's waiting for the music. We're releasing the tracks and an album, and then something I'm also excited about, maybe because I'm a 90s kid, is doing remixes of the tracks.
Wow, that'd be great.
Yeah. So we've got some people working for that. And
can't wait for the songs to come out, and so I can listen to them, because I really loved it. All right, so this is the first episode, and see you guys on the second one.
Bye-bye.